Hierarchical cluster analysis. Hierarchical cluster analysis or hierarchical clustering is a general approach to cluster analysis. Is a statistical method used to group similar objects into respective categories. Example of cluster, in which the object is to group together objects or records that are close to one another. A key component of the analysis is repeated calculation of distance measures between objects and between cluster one objects and begin to be grouped into cluster. The outcome is represented graphically as a dendrogram. Dendrogram is a diagram representing a tree. This diagrammatic representation is frequently used in different contexts. Example of dendrogram. The two main categories of methods for hierarchical cluster analysis are divisive methods. Divisive clustering algorithm is a top-down clustering approach. Initially, all the points in the dataset belong to one cluster and split is performed recursively as one moves down the hierarchy. And agglomerative hierarchical clustering is a clustering for classification method which has the following advantage. It works from the dissimilarities between the objects to be grouped together. A type of dissimilarity can be due to the subject studied and the nature of the data. In practice, the agglomerative methods are of wide use. On each step, the pair of cluster with smallest cluster to cluster distance is fused into a single cluster. The most common algorithms for hierarchical clustering are single linkage clustering and static single linkage clustering is one of several methods of hierarchical clustering. It is based on grouping clusters in bottom-up fashion at each steps combining two clusters that contain the closest pair of elements not yet belonging to the same clusters of each other. Complete linkage clustering. Complete linkage clustering is one of several methods of agglomerative hierarchical clustering. At the beginning of the process, each element is in a cluster of its own. The clusters are then sequentially combined into larger clusters until all elements end up being in the same cluster. Average linkage clustering. In average linkage clustering, the distance between two clusters is defined as the average of distances between all pairs of objects, where each pair is made up of one object from each other and each group. The average group linkage is a method of calculating distance between clusters in hierarchical cluster analysis. The linkage functions specifying the distance between two clusters is computed as the distance between the average values, the mean vectors of centroids of the two clusters. And last, Ward's linkage. Ward's linkage is a method of hierarchical cluster analysis. The idea has much in common with analysis of variance ANOVA. The linkage functions specifying the distance between two clusters is computed of the increase in the error sum of squares ESS after fusing two clusters into a single cluster.